You're in your late 40s or perhaps like me in your 50s and have built a wildly successful life. But like me, you find asking yourself, who am I? Today we are discussing the mind and how it shapes who we are, how it shapes our reality, and how it shapes every experience of life. Welcome to Her Second Stage, the podcast dedicated to inspiring successful women in the next stage of their lives. I'm Hilda and I'm excited to share the lessons I've learned as I transitioned into my second stage. Join me on this exciting journey of sisterhood and remembering who we are at our core. Remember, no matter where you've been, the best is yet to come. The mind as our internal navigation tool will guide us to where it thinks it's the safest for us. In a previous episode called Inner Wisdom, I discussed how the spirit, heart, mind, and soul works together as our inner team to create a life of purpose and alignment. In this episode, I want to discuss the mind in particular, the role of the mind, and how it shapes our experiences and our reality. The language of the mind is thoughts, and the mind is the center of our intellect, ideas, curiosity, learning, and beliefs. The subconscious, conscious, and superconscious minds are the three levels, whereas the subconscious mind represents our past, it stores our memories and our beliefs. This can also be compared to the software of our operating system, determining every action or reaction we might have. The conscious mind represents the present with the role to create meaning and stories from experiences. It's these stories that are stored in the subconscious mind, ready to be recalled at any time in future. Thirdly, the superconscious mind represents our future and possibilities, also called our soul or our spirit. The superconscious mind is the bridge between the physical and the energy worlds, and it is guide us to our purpose. In the other episodes, I used us as a car, for example, where our body is the vehicle, our spirit is the driver, our heart is the steering wheel, and then the mind, as our inner navigation system, helps us make decisions. It finds a way for us to achieve our goals. In the current world, and especially business life, the mind is the aspect of us that we use almost all the time, and the only part we use to make decisions. We've been taught to look at facts and only facts when we just make decisions, and business has become disconnected from heart and spirit as our minds took over control. In business, it's just not cool to make decisions based on a feeling or how it feels in your heart. Personally, I believe the mind-driven businesses are an outdated model, and we need to see more heart-centered businesses where heart and mind works together to achieve the goal. In our car example, the mind is the navigation system and the heart is the steering system. Both are important to achieve the goal. The mind, when aligned with spirit, heart, and body, is the only tool we'll need to figure out a problem or a way to get to a goal. But most often, for many reasons, we've put our minds in charge of our lives, which disconnected us not only from our heart center, but also from our soul and body guidance. Our conscious mind observes our every experience and is tasked with the role of creating meaning of such experience. It's the story maker and the storyteller, which we store in the unconscious mind as a memory. When we recall this memory in the future, we really just recite a story our minds created at some point in the past. Memories are valuable to ensure we remember important details like who we are, recognize our family, our friends, and even to remember where we live, etc. The memory of an experience, however, is our interpretation or the story of that experience, and it's filtered through our belief system. So it is important to understand that this might be subjective. The mind is a superb tool for ideas, intellect, learning, facts, etc. But we need to question it when it comes to story creating and meaning making. This is why two people can have the same experience, but the memory of the event will be different. For example, I walk into a function, into a room full of strangers, and I'm really shy. So I tell myself how horrible it is to not know anyone in the room. Another person might walk into the room, feels nerves, and think how amazing it is to meet so many new people. So it's not the experience, because the experience in both instances were the same. It's the story we create around the experience that determine our reality. Can you think of examples where you remember events differently from, say, your friends or your sister? In case of bad experiences, traumas, etc., our mind will sometimes block remembering the experience to protect us, and we will forget about the experience, especially if we were very young. But this memory is still stored in the subconscious, and it will influence our actions and decisions without us even being aware of it. This is how we continue to recreate the same past experiences throughout our lives. It's very important to acknowledge and check the stories and meanings we attach to events, and be aware of the filter through which these are created. By starting your response by saying, "My story about A, B, or C is blah, blah, blah," will help you detach from the meaning you might have created or attached to something. I'm going to give you an example of it. The previous example where I walk into a room where I don't know anyone, and I tell myself how horrible it is. I stop believing my mind and tell myself my story is that I am shy and that I hate meeting people. I give no attachment to the experience, and it just is. The subconscious mind houses our belief system, which is our internal software that constantly runs in the background through which meaning making occurs. The conscious and subconscious mind works together to create our reality through cognitive biases. And these biases state that we will only see what we are looking for. We've all done that game. We were told to look for a specific color object, like a white color object in a room. Eventually we asked, look for the brown object, and not one person saw the brown object. We all were looking for the white objects, and that's all we saw. Or when we drive on the road, we're looking for white cars, and that's all we see. We don't see the red cars or the black cars on the road. And similar, a practical experience would be, if we believe someone is bad or evil, we will only be able to see the bad or evil things in around that person, and anything good will be blocked out by our mind. Our minds have to do this to protect us in a world through so much stimuli. We need to be able to filter out what we are not looking for, and it's a survival tool. Another bias of our mind is that our mind's job is to protect our belief system. Therefore, it will not allow any new information or experience that it's considered not in line with our belief system to simply enter us or our mind. The second bias is the mind is to understand. The mind's job is to protect our belief system. Therefore, it will not even allow you to observe or consider any data that is contrary to your belief system. For example, if you believe working hard is the right thing to do to become successful, that is what your life will be. You will not even see other ways of doing things because your belief system is that you need to work hard. When we truly understand that we will only see what we are looking for and that we will only observe what we believe, we have the basis to understand ourselves better. And now I hope you'll also understand why discussing the importance of our belief system as it's a filter for our reality. Our beliefs are formed by experiences and by what our parents and caregivers told us before the age of 7. This means that around 75% of our beliefs controlling our lives aren't even ours. In this, the second state of our lives, I would like to call on you to observe, question, and challenge your belief system. In my opinion, this is a crucial step to creating a life of authenticity and living boldly. As the biggest contributor to our reality and how we experience life is also the only way to create something different. The software system needs an upgrade. Without it, our reality stays the same as always. This is great if you are happy in your current reality, but if you want to create a new reality, a new life, a new experience, change will be required. If you want to see what's going on in your subconscious mind, just observe your stories, your thoughts, and your actions in certain experiences. The most common thought process typically observed are patterns, looping, spiraling, and triggers. These determine your decisions, actions, and your behaviors, and you'll observe them when your mind has taken over control. As your mind takes over control, we can get cut off from the voice of our hearts and bodies in order to create protection and keep our belief system intact. I want to look at patterns first, because so many of us are repeating patterns over and over, often with the same unfavorable results. Our story is that we make the same mistakes over and over, and we don't understand why. Our patterns are formed when we are really young, and they begin and they play out throughout our lives, and all we do is just keep on repeating them, even if we're not getting the desired outcome. Let me try and explain. Our patterns are so deep-rooted in the unconscious, and our subconscious is the software that runs the show. And exactly like a computer, the program starts running when we open our eyes in the morning. How does a pattern get stored as a pattern? Children, we form the opinion of the world and ourselves based on our experiences, our emotions and feelings through our primary caregivers. When our emotional needs aren't met, the little child within us gets wounded emotionally. She might experience sensations and feelings she does not understand. Because it is confusing for her, her subconscious hides this memory to protect her. But as she gets older, she has the tools to make sense of the experience. So her subconscious, through continuing to create the experience, give her the opportunity to heal the childhood wound. Let me give you an example. A woman feels or abandoned by her dad when she was a young child. Through this experience, she tells herself the story that she is unlovable and not good enough to be loved. As a child with no capacity to work with this, or the vocabulary to talk about it, it becomes an emotional wound. Let's call it the abandonment wound, which by the time the little girl is an adult is buried deep in her unconscious to protect her. As she grows up, she dates men, possibly even marries a man that is exactly the same as her dad, constantly abandoning her, and thus confirming her belief that she's unlovable or whatever meaning she has created to this experience. The pattern will continue until she's ready to make the change. Most of us have patterns we repeat. Some of us might not even be aware of them. In order to reimagine our futures, we have to become conscious of our patterns and heal the underlying wounds that causes them. Other responses we recreated by our stories are being triggered. A trigger is an over-exaggerated emotional response to a situation or an experience. This emotional response is usually linked to a suppressed memory. Again, our conscious mind wanted to protect us as young girls when we did not have the emotional capacity or vocabulary. So now as adults, our nervous system still over-responds. When you have a similar experience as an adult, the trigger of the first event causes you to become a little girl again. You have an emotional outburst at something that seems so stupid. Give yourself some grace and recognize the little girl in you calling for help. When you become aware of the trigger and map it back to the root cause, you can collapse the trigger. A couple of months ago, my son was walking through the house, snapping his leather belt. When you fold the belt in half and pull the two sides, and it makes a snapping sound. I totally went into a trigger and wanted to scream at him, and I couldn't understand why. So I removed myself from the room and went to sit and try and calm myself down to understand where is this trigger from. And as I was mapping my trigger, I realized that was the sound of my dad's belt just before we got a hiding. He would send us to the bathroom, and as a little 5-year-old, you are so scared and you listen to that sound of the snapping belt and you know it's gonna hurt. So 50 years later, that same belt sound brought that little 5-year-old memories back. If you're aware of what triggers are, when you experience being triggered, it might help you heal those wounds. I want to look at looping. Looping is also called rumination, and it's an over-exaggerated mental response where the same thought repeats over and over without a healthy resolution. It's like being on a mental hamster wheel, and you become a prisoner of your own thoughts. And this, being trapped in your own thought patterns, could jade the reality of what is really going on. An example of this for many women are when your son, friend, boyfriend, husband, whoever, says that he'll be texting you, and then he doesn't. What is that thoughts that goes around on and on? I'm so unlovable. I know he doesn't like me. He doesn't love me. Over and over. And it just traps in it until you give yourself breathing room and you find out that he was simply busy or something happened and he couldn't text you when he said he could. Recognizing the events causing looping behavior will help you to see how you use them as a coping mechanism, and you can understand how unproductive they are and work on healing the wounds that cause you to need to have the coping mechanism in the first place. Okay, now that we understand looping, let's look at spiraling. Spiraling is similar to looping in a sense of being trapped in your thought patterns, but spiraling thoughts are when one erratic thought goes to the next and soon you cannot control your emotional state. For example, let's use the same text example where looping would go the same thought over and over. Spiraling thoughts means, I'm so unlovable, he doesn't love me. What if something happened to him? What if he's in the hospital? And so you go and you convince yourself something bad must have happened, and your whole emotional state is in one of disarray. We can see how unchecked patterns, looping, spiraling, and triggers over time can determine our behaviors and our perceptions and judgments, not only of ourselves, but also towards others. It controls our actions, reactions, and behavior, and therefore our personality. Very few people have awareness of their mental behaviors or understand the origin, and therefore never get to heal the underlying wounds. Thinking, this is who I am, is often the story we believe, and also the reason we stay stuck in our current reality. As we awaken and become more aware, we'll be tired of staying stuck in old thought patterns that doesn't serve us anymore, and we'll start looking for answers. When you reach this point, celebrate. This is the point where your life changes and you become empowered, authentic, and bold. Why, you may ask? Because as you heal, your stories and meanings change, your response change, and therefore your actions change. Different actions leads to a changed life. We should be grateful for our amazing conscious and subconscious minds, for the role it protects us throughout our lives, and at the same time be grateful that we have the opportunity to rewire our brains through rewiring our thoughts. It is every woman's responsibility to herself to not stay stuck in repeating patterns based on past experiences. Staying stuck in these old ways prevents us from tapping into our innate wisdom and our soul's guidance that connects us with our purpose and our future. It isn't even possible to see a different future or a different version of ourselves, let alone create that future, if we're unaware of how our current belief system is influencing and impacting us. Our superconscious mind is the bridge between our physical and energetic worlds. If there's a lot of noise or distortions in the unconscious mind, it will be very hard, if not impossible, to hear or be guided by the superconscious mind. What do I mean by noise and distortions? All the traumas, hurt, pain, bad memories, the old, outdated stories we so desperately cling to. To hear the voice of our soul, we need to heal the wounds and let go of the baggage. We need to reframe the memories by changing the meaning and the stories of experiences. We need to establish if our belief systems are still valid and serve us by establishing if these are even ours, or has it been passed down to us from previous generations? Do we literally even believe our own beliefs? Most of us are hanging on to old, outdated beliefs that are affecting our decisions, behaviors, actions, and interactions with other people. I've no doubt that after a few decades on the planet, we potentially have outdated programming that does not serve us anymore, especially when we seek to create our best second stage. I believe belief mapping processes are very useful to establish if the belief is still of service to me, and even if the belief is still mine. Ask questions. What is my belief about topic X? Ask yourself the question, what is my belief about a specific topic, subject, situation, etc.? How does this belief impact my actions? How does my actions impact the result of my life? How does the results impact my reality? Where's this belief from? Is this truly mine, or has it been passed on by others? Does it still serve me in order to become the best person I want to be? What can I do to let go of it if I need to? Through this self-awareness exercise and committing to your own future, you will not only be able to let go of the past, but you will create an amazing next stage of your life. Find a copy of the Belief Mapping Process on hersecondstage.com. Besides the belief mapping exercise, you can use mindful practices such as meditation to silence the active chatter of your mind, and by becoming silent allows you to observe your thoughts without getting attached to them. Another tool I use is journaling. Write down an experience, my emotions, feelings, the stories my mind creates, how it makes me understand my mental world better. If you often find yourselves reacting, overreacting in certain situations, using a process to map the pattern is also a great way to understand what is going on, and you can change your actions in similar situations in the future. First, it is important to learn to not react immediately. Whenever you are in a trigger, a loop, or spiral, take some deep breaths and remove yourself from the situation if possible, just to calm your nervous system down. If you have time in the situation or possibly later, the pattern mapping process briefly looks like this. For instance, an event occurs that upsets you. You write down the facts around the upsetting event that occurred. Then write down the sensation, what your body experienced. Write your thoughts down about these sensations, what beliefs support your behavior, and then ask yourself, what is the truth? It is fascinating to understand and to see how our mind, when in control, takes charge and to start telling us the stories. The benefit of mapping your pattern is that it allows you to take a step back and understand what's going on in your inner world. You can respond from a much calmer place when you have these self-insights instead of flying off the handle and reacting. There is such a difference between reaction and responding, and I want to just quickly touch on this. Reacting is when you do it in that moment, impulsive without thinking, and often that can cause a lot of damage to relationships. Responding, on the other hand, is a controlled explanation of what you feel you are experiencing and give the other person an opportunity to get to know you better and understand your boundaries. Responding is a lot more self-empowering. Go to hersecondstage.com to find a copy of the pattern mapping process. If you are in a situation and the pattern mapping isn't possible, but you feel yourself on your mental hamster wheel, I would suggest you excuse yourself and do a physical activity. Go for a walk, scream, dance, jumping, any movement literally will help you get unstuck and out of your mind. You always knew you had a powerful mind, and I hope that you understand it better now with some greater insights in the role of creating your reality. You control your mind, and you do not let it control you. I hope you are inspired to become aware of the activities of your mind and your everyday life as a navigation tool to achieve your purpose. Through this awareness, you can work on letting go of what is outdated and not serving you to reconnect with your authentic self and live in a more fulfilling life. Remember, you don't have to believe everything you think. Thank you for joining me today in this episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe or share with your friends and connect with me on social media. Visit hersecondstage.com for more information on the community, as well as finding further tools and information to support you.
Let it ride.